Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Daily BizLink. Kathleen Gramzay is back for our Wednesday Wellness Series, and we're wrapping up part 3 of a resilient strategy. And today we're focused on opportunities in recovery and adaptation. So Kathleen, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. First of all, on a different note, I just want to congratulate you and Fenimore for getting one of the Arizona Business Journal's Excellence Awards for Fenimore. So congrats.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Okay, so we talked about the first 2 parts of a resilient strategy, which is 1, being proactive in creating a culture for that and the structure for that. The second is mitigating whatever chronic stress you have going on where you can. And the third part is really the recovery phase. And this is where adaptation occurs. And it's really important to understand that just because you got through the crisis, it doesn't mean you're done yet. And in this case, really what we're doing is people are actually exercising their resilience muscles at that time, right? Because you're in the middle of the adaptation. So remote working, hybrid, these new rules and regulations, like there's all these things that people are having to kind of get their handle on and get a grip and take a breath with. So the most important things for leadership to do is to provide really the container for people to have the space to do that. And the first thing is the cornerstone of recovery for both individuals and organizations is, not surprisingly, trust, right? That is the cornerstone. Now, if there's been a lot of changes and shift, and we just dealt with trauma for 2 years, people are not feeling safe. And it's not about showing there's no ghost in the closet, like for a kid. It's a sense of feeling of safety. So in order for people to feel safe, they have to have demonstrations, consistent demonstration that they are cared for, that they are safe, and they are provided for. And so this is where providing tangible actions and resources for your people to be able to get through the shifts is really, really critical. So they've done many studies after 9/11 and the impact on the trauma impact on going back to work after a traumatic situation. And granted, that's different than the pandemic. However, the lessons are still there and really helpful to note. So being able to provide resources, and particularly understand that some people, their adaptation and their resilience is greater. So they're going to be able to okay, I'm on board, ready to go. And other people are still in shell shock. Right? They're still having a really hard time. So pay attention and really make note, pay attention to your people, and and then provide them with the help that they can really come back and get back to their full potential and happy state. Another thing is that's really important is setting reasonable expectations and flexible expectations. So by just understanding that everybody's it's like a new start here. So giving people the breathing room to be able to have the runway to be able to then get back up to speed. And then now the third one is to acknowledge people's contributions, individual and collective, on getting through the crisis. If you haven't done that, that's really, really critical. And then do that externally or internally in terms of newsletters, but also feel free to bring kudos and awareness to what people do and have done to allow you to still be in business and still be thriving. I like to give you an example of something that's the exact opposite. So this is what not to do, because we can always learn by what not to do, right? This one is this organization. Prior to the pandemic, they had the CDC protocols in place. So hand sanitizer, social distancing, the mask, the whole thing. They decided that they were ready to get their people back to work. And so they sent out an email telling everyone they expected them to come back to work on alternating days. The people get back to work, and now they're alternating days, so it's kind of weird because not everybody's there at the same time, right? And they come back to all the protocols gone, not a hand sanitizer in sight, and because they've downsized, they have now had taken away people's space, their office space or the cubicles that they had, and now they have workstations that they are meant to share on alternate days. So, and then the leadership wonders, why are my people disgruntled? Why have people left? Why are they not really happy about coming back? right? So it's basic, simple stuff, but man, when you do it and with your folks in mind about understanding how critical safety and trust is, then things can really work in a different direction.
So Kathleen, of everything that you've mentioned in this episode, is there a specific challenge that you have for our listeners?
Yes, I would ask you in your resilience strategy, here's a couple of good questions. Do you have a baseline of resilience for your people? Right now, do you know where they are in their resilience levels? And especially, I invite you to really find that out about your HR people and about your managers, because leaders, HR and managers are the people that are front facing and actually carrying the burden of everybody else's emotional responses. So those are your key people to really make sure that they have the resources they need to do their jobs and their own emotional and well-being support. The second is evaluate your existing well-being programs. Many organizations have employee assistance programs, EAPs, that aren't very well utilized. Consider augmenting them with self-directed like resilience training or self-directed apps that actually help people make progress on their own. So then it can help to mitigate and destigmatize asking for support, so that it's a progression, like, oh, I can do this by myself, but oh, we have an EAP where I can actually speak to somebody. So it's a really good way to be able to shore up and get more value out of what you already offer, and offer actual entry level in that people can understand. I'm not crazy and nothing's wrong with me. I just have, I just don't know how to handle this, and I can get skills to do it. And if your HR or executive team is overwhelmed, given everything that's going on with your end and all new stuff, consider bringing in expertise to help you with your resilience strategy, or with being able to take an overall look. There are components of resilience that actually dovetail beautifully with inclusion, right? Because that sense of belonging ties to both. So if your own team is overwhelmed, bring in some expertise to help you get a bigger picture of how can we streamline all these things that we're trying to do, and do it in a way that supports the organization and supports our people.
I do think from a leadership standpoint, just like making the effort or saying that, we found a solution, if you're interested in participating, I think that would go a long way. So for those that don't remember, Kathleen does offer some of those services with helping local organizations, and she's a great resource for any of those additional conversations internally. So Kathleen, as we look to wrap up today's conversation, is there anything else that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Keep being resilient, and happy to help anywhere I can.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the Wednesday Wellness.
Thanks.